Okay. All right. I think we are live right now at this moment. If you're watching the show after it's already aired, make sure you check the comments and description below for the show notes so you can find out the areas that you want to jump on into. There is a few news topics we're going to be covering this evening, but right now we are still in pre-show mode. And as you can tell, Jason Bong is not here, but we're going to go ahead and introduce our co-host this evening. Dave, go ahead and say hi.
Oh, yikes.
Oh, no, not again. We're going to... Dave,
how are you guys? Looking forward to another good chat today. Hopefully we've got some really interesting things to say.
And then Ike, go for it, man.
What's up, people? You know I always got interesting things to say, and if I don't, then I'm just going to make a joke on somebody. I'll do that anyway.
Dave, are you good? Can you hear us right now?
Yeah, you know what? I had the actual thing playing and I heard this double thing going, but it was because I had you guys playing on the TV up there and it was like double thing going. It's fine now. I've turned it off.
I got really scared because last time I ended up ejecting you from the show.
I know. I don't want you to do it again.
Yeah, I definitely didn't want that happening again. That was rough. That was a rough time. But yeah, for those of you joining us again, we are in pre-show mode. The official show will start in about 12 minutes or so. But yeah, if you have any comments or even questions, we'll take them right now in the chat. So Fathom Rocker says, "Did you guys fire Jason?" Question.
Yeah, he's gone. Jason's gone. The end of it. Just weren't happy with him.
Look, Jason's out. Like, I don't blame. Last time when he was out hanging with them big YouTubers, I was like, I don't blame Jason. Like, who wants to come here when you can be hanging out with Tony Northup and Manny Ortiz and Jared Paul? I'm like, yeah, sorry, Danny, I ain't gonna be able to make it.
Hey. So for those of you who don't know, Jason's at Adobe Max right now. So that's what he tells me. So he's at Adobe Max at the moment. So.
Yeah, where does Adobe Max happen at? Because I know they have an office out here in Seattle.
It's probably in LA or something like that.
Yeah,
I could be wrong.
That might be LA.
Yeah.
So where are you? Are you at school?
Yeah, I'm still at work. I was filming some stuff. So like we're doing like this little short film, working with the students or like actors and so forth. And I mean, we finished up around 6 o'clock, so I figured I might as well just stay here for the next 30 minutes or so and just plan the show. So
yep.
Yeah. Let's see. Dylan Cooley says, "Whiskey Monday for me." That's great. Oh boy.
What else have we got in there?
Nivek 888 says, "Any more reports of the A7 III/A7R3 firmware update slowing, focusing on the Tamron 20 to 75?" Now that's new. David, you just mentioned that to me about some possible slowdowns with the Tamron. I did not know that the recent firmwares had caused that. Potentially.
Yeah, well, I actually didn't. I had a number of people ask me about that, but I used it extensively on Saturday. I didn't take it off the A7 III actually, and I didn't notice any difference at all. So I'm not sure what's going on there. It might be something that we don't know about, but I certainly haven't noticed the difference. And like I said, I use it extensively, and I didn't notice any difference at all. So I'm not sure yet what's going on there. I'm sure if there is an issue, though, it will probably be an easy firmware fix that Tamron will have to release. But like I said, I haven't noticed anything wrong with it at all.
Yeah, I'm really hoping it's not something that, I mean, we are going to talk a little bit about it with regards to the battery situation, but I hope it's not Sony trying to maybe push things around in the sense that they want people to go ahead and buy their Sony products and not, give third-party lens manufacturers a hard time like Tamron. So I really hope that's not the case right now. But yeah, go ahead.
It's interesting you make that point because it's like before the whole mirrorless thing with DSLRs, it was always, Sigma or Tamron. And, everybody says that, like, I'm not sure. I know, also you talked about how, Nikon wasn't opening up their mount to third parties. I don't know if they necessarily did that even before or even Canon. I think the other makers just kind of figured it out, and it was like, you can't really stop them from selling the gear. And so, because why would Nikon want anybody to be able to make lenses for their stuff when they have like 100 years worth of lenses. Same thing with Canon. So I think you made a great point. Like with everything being a bit more digital now, like Sony could put some kind of like code in or something to recognize a different lens and say, okay, we're going to trigger some malfunction so that people can't use third-party gear with our stuff now that they're starting to fill in the gaps.
Yeah, perhaps. I hope Sony, I mean, like I said, I haven't noticed a difference, and I would have thought if there was an issue with that firmware, particularly with the Tamron, it'd be on basically every camera out there. And like I said, I used it a hell of a lot on Saturday and didn't notice any difference at all. I don't think that Sony would do that. That it'd be a very silly thing to give Tamron the open. Well, basically, they let Tamron develop that lens exactly like it was a Sony lens. So it'd be very silly to then turn around and change that system for Tamron particularly. I don't think that's going to be the case. It may be just something with someone's settings or something like that, or even before, remember, some had the issue with the Tamron lenses and some didn't. I didn't have any of those issues right from the beginning, even before that firmware upgrade was done. So it could be something with the camera. Perhaps it's something if they had that third-party battery in there. You know, it could be anything. It could just be a bug that we don't know yet. So yeah.
If you're in the chat and you have the 20 to 75 Tamron, let us know if you're having focusing issues even after the firmware update. Currently, right now, mine is just doing just fine. No problems on my end at this moment. So, but yeah, I would love to know how your lenses are faring for you. Now, with regards to focus, so Dave, was it in video or just photos, or was it both?
Well, they didn't say that was the issue. All I got was I had a number of people say on my Facebook page that they were having issues with it being slower in focusing. Now, they didn't mention whether it was stills or video.
Okay.
So we're curious to know today if others have used it.
All right. Let's see here. Hey, since we're talking about this, Dave, did you have any issues with your SD cards? I mean, you have an A7 III by any chance, or are you using a SanDisk?
No, I've got the older versions of the SanDisk, so I'm not having any issues. I'm using the Sony one as the main one. Where's my A9? I'll show you exactly what I'm using. So I'm using in the main slot, I'm using these, which is the Sony. See if it focuses. So they're the main ones that I'm using in the fast card because it's a UHS-2 card. In the other one, I'm using these ones, which is a SanDisk, but it's the older version, I think. So I'm not using the new version. So there must be this. It's reported so much that I actually did a video about that, and I got an incredible amount of people putting on the comments that they were having that issue. So it obviously is a really wide affecting issue. Now, I'm not sure whether it is only, there's so many rip-off versions of those SanDisk cards if you're buying them from Amazon or wherever you're going to get them from. Others that are buying them from the stores aren't noticing the same issues. So it's a bit weird what's going on there. But I noticed Sony have said today, I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but that they're talking about there may be a firmware update that could be available for this. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting. But none of the cards I've had have had that issue.
Okay. Chris Barrier on the chat says upgraded the firmware and no issues after shooting 1,000 pics this weekend. I'm assuming that's with the Tamron 20 to 75, so no problems there yet. Tagged a shooter saying he uses the newer 128 card. No issues on the A9 or the A7R3 while using it in slot 1. Thanks for chiming in on that. Wait. Sony's dropping the price on the Sony A7R2 to $1,799.
Yeah, that's a scam.
Is it a scam?
Oh, R2. Sorry, I thought it R3. That actually might be true. I wouldn't be surprised if that happened.
Yeah, well, I mean, really, you wouldn't. Why would you buy that camera if you just go and get the A7 III? That's the thing, you know. It's so much of a better camera.
Well, that's the thing, David. Ways. Like all of the cheapos, and I don't want to call them cheapos, but the people who like want a nice full frame camera who are just portrait shooters, because remember the A7R3 uses the exact same sensor. I think they did tests, like it's the same sensor. So if you want full frame 40 2 megapixels, but you don't need the faster focusing or like for landscapes and stuff. I don't see why it wouldn't be a great buy to get the A7.
I thought it was the A7S2 we were talking about. Was it the R2?
Yeah, R2.
Yeah, the R2.
Oh, no, I love that. I've still got that camera. Yeah, I love it. It's a great camera. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah, I thought he was talking about the S2.
No, it's a really good option, especially if you know exactly what you're shooting. Your target things that you're shooting aren't moving very quickly. It's a really great camera. Especially
in fact, I use that on Saturday for a number of shots. I target it when I use it now. The bride and groom were on the other side of a lake, and I wanted to get the whole lake, but I wanted enough resolution that if I did want to sort of crop in a bit later on, I could do that. So I didn't use the A9 or the A7 III. I actually grabbed my A7R2 due to the fact that it had all those extra pixels in case if I needed it. So I do think that way, and I still take the A7R2 for that type of shoot or shot in mind. But, I don't use it anywhere near as much as what I used to.
Vincent Vega mentioning, how come some people don't use a UHS-2 card in the second card slot? True if it doesn't write as fast, but don't you want faster transfer rates when uploading? I can chime in on that, Vincent. I do try to use UHS-2 card slots whenever possible. I also have those Sony ones that are not, the write speed's not fast, but the read speed's pretty fast. You know those cards I'm talking about? It's the M series Sony.
Yeah.
Because my laptop that I'm using right now has a UHS-2 card slot built in, so I'm able to transfer very quickly to the SSD. So I really like that fast transfer speeds. But I think some people don't really mind waiting just a little bit longer. But Dave or Photomaniac,
Well, I don't actually ever take out that second card slot. Remember, the way I'm shooting is only RAW on the fast card, JPEG on the second card. So for me, that's only an emergency case if there's something wrong with the RAWs that I would then take that out. But I've never really had to, apart from that one time where the A9 corrupted on the main card. I've never, ever taken that other card out apart from formatting it. So it's only there for me as a backup. So the speed issue is not a problem at all. And it certainly doesn't slow the camera down because it's only writing JPEG. And it's ample for what I'm using. So I'm not using it as flow over, like to keep writing. It's only complete backup for me.
Okay. Photomaniac, any thoughts on just transferring cards or anything? You be cool with it just taking its time, or?
Yeah, it's a great point. Like I have all UHS-1 cards. Like I got like the cheaper UHS-1, so it doesn't bother me as much. Although when I get the Z6, I'm going to be forced to upgrade to XQD, so that'll be quite the nice upgrade. But I work from a desktop at home, and I'm never like in a rush like that. And so, and really like the stuff that I shoot, these are fast enough, Yeah. So.
All right. Let's see.
And then also with that being said, depending on how you shoot, like if you shoot JPEG and RAW and your UHS-2 is your backup, you probably won't care as much about your backup as much as your RAWs, So, and then you can get a cheaper card to back up your JPEGs, which are like half the size of a RAW file. You can put like a 64 gigabyte RAW in one and a 128 gigabyte UHS-2 and have that run your medium JPEGs or whatever. So
yeah,
that's what I do. Like I'll have like an 8 gigabyte CF card with a 128 with my D800, and then I'll just put like medium JPEG to my 8 gigabyte, and it'll be enough for the amount that I shoot.
All right, thanks for that, Photomaniac. So it's almost 7:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time where I'm at. We're going to go ahead and start the Monday live show. Thanks for joining us this evening. I've got a couple guests with me. As you can tell, Jason Vong is not here. He's currently at Adobe Max, or that's what he tells me. And before we get started and introducing our guest, don't forget to drop a like and also check the show notes down below. If you're just catching it right after the show's over, we're going to have show notes posted down below. So let's go ahead and have our guest say hi. Dave, go ahead and start us off.
Just before we start, Steve Pritchard just dropped in $20. Thank you. You can pass it on to me if you like. Thanks so much, mate. That's great. Talk a little more to us newbies, please, but I understand. I love it. Are we talking about new gear, are we?
Not yet, not yet.
Oh,
Oh,
what were we saying? I forgot. I was looking at
we're
that
just saying
$20 donation.
we're just saying hi. We're just saying hi.
Ah, yeah.
I
G'day, everyone. Really happy to be here again today. We're going to have a ball. Love these guys. Looking forward to having a chat about a number of things. I can see what we're going to chat about, and I think we're going to have a great time.
Ike.
Oh yeah, wait, I messed up. I was like responding to the comments. Yeah, great time. Hi, I'm here. You know who it is. It's your boy back in the building. Like, what do you
Now we've got competing shirts on. We need to stand up, Ike, so you can see the shirts. See, I've got the
personality.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm gonna get a shirt made that says APS-C is there, and it's gonna have that A as the capital APS-C. All right. So
speaking of our topics, it might be the case. You never know. It could be the situation that we're in. But yeah, so we got a quite a bit of topics this evening. We're going to go ahead and briefly talk a little bit about it, but we are going to go ahead and start off with our usual topic, new gear. Let us know in the chat what you recently picked up this week or even last week and how much your wallet's hurting today. Please let us know. And as far as some news topics we're going to cover, we will talk about some things about the APS-C cameras not coming around so soon. We don't know when the release dates are going to be. We are going to kind of break down an interview from DP Review that they had with the Sigma CEO, which I think will be very interesting, especially with their mirrorless lenses. And finally, we're going to round it off by talking about the Sony battery warning that's been coming up, which I think kind of surfaced on Sony Off Rumors when I saw it. And I'll share a little bit about my experience with that issue and then even get some thoughts from you guys in the chat. But that's kind of it as far as our main topics. But we will pick some brains as far as I think a little bit about PhotoMeX experience with the Nikon Z6 or Z7. What was it?
Z7. Yeah, I shot a wedding this weekend, and I tried to put a vlog together to try to record my experience and talk about it. So I'm gonna try to keep a unbiased, like straight, no nonsense, like take on that camera for shooting weddings for anybody who dares to shoot a wedding with one car stuck in one.
Okay, it's gonna be really fun. I can't wait to hear Ike's thoughts on that. So, but we're gonna go ahead and start off with new gear. Dave, start us off. What have you picked up recently in the last week or so?
Well, not much actually, but I did get one thing, and I thought that, well, it's not really gear, but it might be something of interest to a few people. This has been out for a while, but I bought this. It's actually a book. Do you know Peter Hurley? I mean, he's quite a famous headshot photographer. He does beautiful work, but it really does interest me because I do a lot of this, and as you know, we never stop learning. So I actually bought this. Peter Hurley's on the back. But it's a really beautiful book, and I've only just started to read it, but it goes through basically everything talking about how to shoot really amazing headshots, because that's one part of the market that at the moment is a good area to get into, because so many people want their headshots for things like Instagram and Facebook and things like that. And I found I do get an awful lot of work from that side of it, but I thought this might just up my game a little bit. So it's something a little bit different. But it was, what was it, $44.99 USA. But yeah, but great book. I got that on Amazon. That's it for me. I'm a really quiet week.
You know what's interesting? I remember some years ago when Peter Hurley was releasing his content on video, and I remember his really funny videos where he had people work on that jawline. The jawline was such a big thing with him.
Yeah.
And it was kind of strange because he kind of fizzled out with regards to sort of the YouTube world of things, because he kind of picked up in that area. And I think I remember first seeing him was at Photo Plus, I think last year. And it was the funniest thing ever because we're trying to go in. I think we're trying to go into the location, and then you just see Peter Hurley going down the line saying hi to everybody, telling them about his booth that he has. And I just thought it was kind of surreal in a weird way. Just kind of a funny way, kind of starstruck in a sense, but it was just very interesting, I guess.
Well, there's two guys that I really admire. Well, he's one of them for headshots. The other guy that I have other books about and really admire his work is Jerry Guionis. I mean, he's a Nikon ambassador, but he is by far the best poser, or for teaching posing, of anyone that I've ever seen or worked with. And if anyone can ever get to one of his workshops, I'd just so highly recommend him, because unlike a lot of other YouTubers, he is a full-time shooter. and he does other stuff on the side as well. But his posing work particularly is amazing.
Cool.
Yeah, no, I agreed. I met what's his name? I've met both Peter Hurley and
Jerry Gionis.
Jerry Gionis. And Jerry's funny because I remember when I first met him, he was like, "Oh, hey, Kanye West," and this is before the crazy Kanye West. So he was always crazy, but this was way back when, before I got to. But I was like, wow, this guy's like in tune. Like because I used to always get like, oh, you kind of remind me of Kanye West, and I was like, I can kind of see if you squint, but he like off top, like he was like, oh, cool, you remind, and I was like, oh, nice. So like he's always been cool in my book, like, and just the way he talks and how he just goes about how he does things is just like if there's somebody I could be like in wedding photography, it would be him.
Yeah, me
like,
too.
He's amazing.
All right, Ike, anything new?
Oh, new gear. Yeah, new gear, iPhone XS.
Oh.
The regular 256 gigabyte. I talked a whole lot of crap about it, and I was like, oh, screw the XS. I'm getting the XR. I'm not paying Nikon $1,000 a year. Or not Nikon, sorry, Sony. Apple, jeez. I'm not paying Apple $1,000. Like, I was so like I will never spend $1,000. And then my sorry ass broke down. I was like, but the camera and all this, and I live stream. So funny thing is, and I'll like let this loose on the live stream. I got an email from I guess this like Team Pixel, and it was like, hey, we want to send you a Pixel 3 to become. And I'm like, I'm an Apple guy. I got an iPad, iPhone, iMac. I bought Wi-Fi. Like we have everything Apple. And I got this email. And I was like, hey, would you be interested in joining Team Pixel? And I'm like, is this a scam? But it looked legit. And I was like, yeah, sure. And it was like, go ahead and send it to me. And it sent me a tracking number. So I might do a Pixel 3 unboxing and Pixel 3 versus iPhone. And from what I've seen, the Pixel 3 has the better camera. I'm just tied into the Apple ecosystem because everything works together. But I can see myself using the Pixel as my live streaming phone or fun phone, or even doing some videos and making some content out of respect for them for reaching out to me and sending me the phone,
Oh,
yeah, I did a video recently comparing the A7 III with that iPhone we've got, Photomic, and I was quite surprised how well it went. It wasn't, I mean, it still wouldn't replace the A7 III, but if you're in good lighting, I was amazed with the results. It was actually really good. It struggled in the beginning when it was very overcast and very flat, but the second the sun came out, the results really were pretty good.
Wow.
Yeah, and you see those marketing photos and you see these people that take these great pictures. I really want to do like a really dope shoot with the iPhone, and I'm gonna sooner or later I'm gonna purchase the LED hot light so I can like set up like a constant light situation and just do like a photo shoot, kind of like how f-stoppers did a long time ago.
Yeah.
To just do this elaborate shoot, but then shoot them all on the iPhone. Maybe shoot it versus the Pixel 3 and like make it, amp up the ante. So
see, the interesting thing too is, and this is where I often say to people, that any camera can be in the right hands can be art. And we were talking about Jerry Gionis before. He actually won an album, a wedding album, at the WPPI, shot with his iPhone. He actually won an award there with his iPhone. So if you think you can't produce great work with really, low-end gear, if you know what you're doing, it's the artist behind the gear that really matters.
Yeah, for real.
I mean, I would say it's still some pretty high-end stuff with the iPhone, especially pricing. So,
well, yeah, true.
Yeah, it's not cheap. So, and I'm just rocking with the iPhone X. I just went and picked up with that one instead, but I've been pretty happy with the iPhone overall. It's really smooth. It's that new iOS. It's just so buttery smooth.
Yeah, man, it's crazy. I upgraded from a 6S, so going from a 6S to an XS is like, it's a real upgrade, like a legit upgrade.
Yeah. Dave, you have the XS model, or do you have the Plus?
No, it's the XS Max. Yeah, that I bought.
Oh, you have the large one.
Yeah, I wanted the larger size, so I've always had the larger one. I got the X, and I did miss going down in that size. So I gave that to my wife, who always gets because I upgrade every single year, and I'm lucky she gets the older one, and then I buy the new one each year. But I'm really glad to go back to that bigger screen again. I really like this one. I think it is by far the best one that they've produced. It's not cheap though. It was 2,000 Australian dollars.
Wow. Business expense, right? All right. So,
Yep.
all right. As far as new gear on my end, I picked my Ronin S came in, and my Atomos Ninja 5 came in, but it's at my house, which I'm not here, so I'm away right now, and I'll check it out next week. We'll see. So I'll try and use it.
Why did you go for? What made you decide to go for the big Rowan, Danny? Was there a reason?
I just, when I was looking at reviews for it, just felt like the right system for me. That's all I could say. I'm just gonna use and see how it goes.
Yep.
Dave.
And did you get the cable with that? I know there was a lot of whinging online talking about that you had to buy the Sony cable.
I don't know yet, so we'll see what happens when I open the box and see what's in there. But I don't know. If anything, I'll have to order it. So
it does look like an amazing gimbal, though. From what I've seen, it's really steady and you know, really good. It's probably not for me because I like to carry the two cameras around, so it's probably going to be too heavy. If you're shooting single video, it'd be amazing.
I was more impressed by the responsiveness of the device when I would see the reviews that people had of it, just the speed at which you can move and maneuver. I was just really impressed with that.
Yeah.
So, all right. Let's kind of hammer out some new gear here. Jim Penn says he held an A7R3 the other day. He says, I did not buy it, but do know my bank account will soon suffer. He says. Tag the Shooter says, finally, my Sony 400 f2.8 G Master came in and did a couple of college games. Man, Tag, I'm so jealous. So jealous. Fathom Rocker, new gear, patiently waiting for the A7S3. And you guys can jump in on any new gear if you catch anything on your end, Dave or Photobiac.
I'm just looking there. Atelier said, I bought David O's used A9R and 50 1.2 G Master. In the future of 2020.
We're making stuff up now. Oh god.
The Essential Light says I picked up a used Sony Zeiss 55 f1.8 that is in like new condition, and I've been wanting that lens for a long time. That lens is amazing. That Zeiss 55 is money.
Hey,
that's my favorite lens on gimbals too. I love using that on a gimbal.
And by the way, I've dropped it about 5 feet to the ground on concrete. It survived, so you're in good hands.
Yikes. I mean,
all right.
You like me, dude. You drop lenses and RX 100s.
I still remember it's like Jason was more shocked than I was. And when it fell down, I was just relaxed. Jason was like, what happened? All right.
I noticed BBVM16 said my Tamron's all good. So it's interesting. Let us know, guys, if any of you have noticed a difference with the Tamron after the Sony version 2 firmware update.
Yeah, definitely. M1 Hoff, new gear, 85G Master, RX 100 Mark V, and an Aperture F7 Lite. Awesome.
That's a cool buck he spent there on that.
M1 Hoff said new gear 85 GM.
Oh, I got that one already.
Oh, you got that one? Okay, sorry. What else have we got?
Bob Ho with the Samsung 256 gigabyte micro SD card.
Oh, nice. Pete Tran, new gear, the Mir 1B 37mm f2.8 vintage Russian lens. I'm not familiar with that. I don't know if any of you guys are.
No, I don't know about that either.
Okay.
Oh, whoa. Devin Ron says new gear Atomos Ninja 5 came in late last week. Nice.
Yeah, I noticed Danny. I was talking to him about that earlier. He's that's at home as well, he was saying. So looking forward to seeing his review of that. I'm thinking about getting that. I'll just have to convince Kerry. She hates me every time I come home with something new. I've still got to get her over the ProPhoto B10 yet, so she's still not talking to me over that one. But I wouldn't mind to get that. But yeah, I'll see. I have the Shogun big monitor, but they're a lot larger than what that Ninja V is. So that's what interests me about that one.
What would be your intention though, Dave? Like what would be your aim for having the Atomos Ninja 5? Just a smaller Shogun?
Yeah, it's smaller than the Shogun, so I can stick it just on the hot shoe and use it as a front-facing monitor if I need to, because Sony aren't going to give us that, are they? So that's the thing that I probably will think about getting it for. I use the Shogun occasionally. I do record to it sometimes because it's much faster putting it into Final Cut if you record to the Shogun, because the ProRes on that is already obviously converted, and then it's very, very quick to edit. So sometimes I do use it to record, but mostly it's just to show, like demos of how the camera's working and the focusing modes and things like that, because it can record all that aspect of it as well.
All
Gotcha.
right. Vincent, go for it, man. Oh, Vincent Vega, new gear, the Wandered Hexed Duffel. Man, I don't know that. And the PRVKE31 and sensor swaps for the next time you guys come to San Diego. Thanks again, Vincent, for helping us out then. But yeah, I haven't heard that, Brent. Have you guys heard that one?
No, I haven't.
I have not.
And then Claire, man, I don't know if you got Claire, man, but the Samsung Galaxy Note 9 with the moment lens.
Oh no,
on the way.
No,
and then
get that.
M1 Hoff new gear iPhone XX Max, XS Max. Okay, maxed out. Oh yeah, maybe we said it. 256 gigabyte. Stanley with the Sigma 35mm f1.4 lens.
Nice.
Oh wow, there's a lot of stuff coming in here, guys.
Steve Kurtz new gear 24 to 105 f4, which is what Nikon should have came out with instead of the 24 to 70. But that's a whole nother. Yeah. Anyways.
Let's see here. John Louis Imperial, Sonos Beam, and an ice cream scooper.
Lovely.
Fantastic. Wingbird, New Gear NEX7 Mark II. Kayo Andreotti, New Gear Benro carbon fiber tripod and ball head. Geotherma, New Gear bought the Aperture AL-MX. Thing is insanely bright and great for when I can't get out my huge light boxes.
Jack has got the Sony 85 1.8. Lovely. It's a great lens by Sony, that one. Really good lens.
Andy Garcia, New Gear Sony Z battery after yesterday's firmware update. Sad face. Or Stanley Morris, Sigma 35 f1.4 art. And then we just got a super chat, I believe, here from Steve Pritchard. Steve Pritchard lenses. He's asking. I think he's asking. 3.5 30mm macro. FEF 1.8. Is that what he picked? The full frame 50mm f1.8. The 55 to 210. The 16 to 50 kit lens. The 70 to 200 f4. Sony FE55 f1.8, and he just ordered the 24 f1.8 G Master, 24 f1.4 G Master. So that's what Steve just got. He's asking, what should I try to sell?
55 to 210.
I was going to say you could probably sell family portraits, sell wedding photography, sports photography. What do you want to sell? Dog photography?
I don't know. Is he talking about that, or is he talking about which lens to sell out of?
I'm being funny.
I'd get rid of the 55 to 210 out of that lot, definitely. It's a pretty good setup, though. I've got that 3.5 30 macro as well. I love that lens. It's an APS-C lens, but it's fantastic.
I mean, he recently picked up the 55 the 1.8, I believe, so he doesn't need the 51.8 anymore, or the 55 to 210. Those are redundant, I would say. And
he's got the 70 to 200.
Yeah, 70 to 200 f4.
So he doesn't need the 55 to 210.
Yeah, I think that's a good call there, right?
Yep, definitely. If you the 55, you definitely don't need the 50.
Yeah. All right, Steve. Thank you so much for the $20 super chat. We'll try and see what we can get to as far as the chat's concerned. There's a lot of new gear going on, so let's see here.
Oh, Bird Photo said he dropped his A7 III and cracked the body.
Oh shoot, that's not a good feeling.
Yeah.
Roberto Lindo got the 18 to 105 f4 after following my recommendations for mirror reach at a budget for the 6300. Hopefully you're liking it, Roberto.
I love that lens. It's a great lens.
Let's see here. Wetsuit 76, Sony 85 1.8, and a new pair of Godox lights with remote triggers.
Nice.
Basil got the Sony 70 to 200 G Master in the 1.4 teleconverter.
Nice.
Leon No says New Gear Rhino ROV Pro slider that technically belongs to my work, but who's keeping track? He says.
Right.
I noticed two STG filmmakers said, I'm using my Canon 24 to 105 f4 glass with the MC11 with firmware 2. It's just like native glass. And I keep hearing great things now about how Sony have opened that up to like Canon and others. And I'm wondering whether too, that is that a direct sort of thing combating that Nikon and Canon were going to do similar things that, you know, now Sony have said, well, we're going to give better focusing to those lenses. It's interesting to see how that's happened just as these other cameras have come out. I don't know what you guys think about that.
Talking about that updated firmware on the Sigma to try to help with compatibility in terms of
and how the firmware 2 of the Sony has enabled the full focusing modes of the new of Canon and other third-party lenses.
You know, I haven't done a lot of tests with it, but I definitely should try.
Well, you know, with Leica taking shots at Sony's like, you know what? We're gonna make sure all you guys' lenses work on our system, so you can't say anything.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about that mount? Okay, then when people adapt that 28 to 70 f2 lens, then what you gonna say?
Yeah. Let's see. Chasing Creation, Ugear Tamron 20 to 75 full frame finally arrived. Crazy flexibility, mini macro to portraits. And thanks to Grant for the great video, guys. All right. Let's see. A family of 5 says the Ninja 5 is screaming at me to open the box. It's still there in my desk. Let's see here. Bird Video and Photo says Sigma 18 to 135 to f1.8 clutch for low light video, guys. Man, I've been using that 18 to 35 to shoot this little short like skit film video I've been doing. I love the 18 to 35 for video. I really do.
Yeah, I wish Sony would bring out a lens like that.
Yeah, that'd be really awesome. Let's see here. We're going to read a few more. If there's anything you guys catch, feel free to read it. And I think we're going to get started soon on the actual news topics or rumor news too.
Robert said, question, sold my A6000 when I received the A7 III, debating whether to sell my APS-C lenses or buy the A6500. I heard APS-C is not dead. So any thoughts? Well, I certainly wouldn't be buying the A6500 at the moment unless you really need it. I'd be waiting to see what happens in the coming, well, could be months, but I certainly would be waiting. I wouldn't be buying an A6500 now.
It's such a tough call. I mean, we'll talk about it on the show a little bit, but it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if you, I mean, I wonder like why somebody would buy if you're new coming into Sony. Like, I wonder what would make somebody buy an A6500 now, unless you're just trying to get your toe wet, or if you, I don't know, like, because to me, I feel like if you plan on only staying APS-C, Fuji has the better APS-C system at the moment with their XT3, and its price. And it's priced competitively with the A6500. So like, I mean, I don't know. And then like, I don't know. And then
plus they have more lenses as well, don't they? I mean, that's the interesting thing. If you're talking about the APS-C side, Fuji have way more lenses.
Yeah.
But I think for this person in particular, they have the full frame. They just got the A7 III, and they want to just add as a secondary camera. I think that's kind of the debate they're having as a secondary camera.
Yeah, that makes sense because, you know, to have like a nice like vacation. Again, like I said, when I went on vacation and I had my Panasonic G85, and that's all I needed for like walk around and family like touristy like photos. I don't need to take a big camera with a big lens to be a tourist. That's a bit much for me.
The great part, though, is, and this is the thing I do like about the Sony, is that you can use those exact same lenses. You can use the full frame lenses on the APS-C. So you sort of future-proof yourself. And that's what I did initially. I bought a couple of lenses for the A6500, but then I thought, well, I'm not buying any more. I'm just going to buy full frame lenses and use those on the APS-C. And I can't tell any difference in quality. I know some say there is, but I can't pick it. So I think that's probably the way to go, and you future-proof yourself. The problem is if you go Fuji, you lock yourself into APS-C, and that's all you can do. And that's the problem if you go down the Fuji line. You can't use those lenses on full frame. At least if you're in the Sony sort of side of it, you can get full frame lenses, use them on the APS-C cameras, and then also use them if you decide to dump the APS-C and go to full frame. So that's a big advantage.
Yeah. You know, I honestly wish the MC11 adapter would work even better. because I would rather just get EF Sigma lenses just so I have the ability to jump to Canon if I if I had the option.
Well, apparently it does now, Danny. You need to update that because apparently it is working really amazingly now.
I mean, the thing is, like, I don't know if they updated enough with this, because I shoot with the Sigma 120 to 300. I'll shoot sports with that, with the MC11. I just never found it the same performance as like a native Sony lens, and I just never felt confident with it compared to my Sony stuff. So I'll try it again. I'll take a look at it and see if I feel it any better.
Yeah, it might make a good video.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see here. I just want to read this one from Michael Meisher. Says, "What's up, everyone? Ike in the house, and my go-to guy, David Osler, and the man behind the plan, Danny, that 100 camera guy." There's some truth to that, I guess. Let's see here. All right. Okay. So I think we're going to go ahead and try and tackle some of these news topics this evening. So again, for those of you that are in the chat right now, joining us this evening, I really appreciate it. Don't forget to drop a like if you haven't got a chance to. And I've got links to both David Osler's channel and PhotoMeIke's channel in the description below. So please go ahead and show them some love when you get a chance to check out their channels and subscribe. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and jump into this. So I wanted to go ahead and bring up this interview that I think was posted on either Mirrorless Rumors or Sony Alpha Rumors, but it's coming from this website, pronews.japan. They had an interview with one of the senior managers from Sony, Mr. Tanaka is what he goes by. And I thought it was somewhat interesting because the bullet points here being that Sony, because there's been a lot of discussion lately about, is APS-C dead? Are they going to be producing cameras or lenses for Sony APS-C? And Mr. Tanaka was pointing out that the initial goal was, whoa, holy mac and cheese and meatballs. We just got, Steve Pritchard just dropped $100 in the chat to get things going. That is, Steve.
And no question.
There's nothing on there, Steve. Wow. Steve, thank you so much for dropping that. That will, now I definitely got to get a rental on that 400 2.0.
Yeah, you got to, bro. You got to. Look, my subscribers, I had a live stream the other day, and my subscribers helped out because my rental, I was like, yo, my rental's due back. To keep it is going to cost me quite a bit. And my subscribers came through and they donated, and I was able to afford to keep the camera for like another couple days to make this stuff. So look.
And that has to stay to you too, because Jason's not on the show, so you know he's missed out. He's going to be watching that somewhere and going, "Whoa."
Steve, thanks again, man. Oh wow, that's crazy. All right, jumping back into this. So Mr. Tanaka was basically emphasizing in the actual interview that they wanted to obviously satisfy the full frame camera market with their prosumer and professional market, which made sense. They started off with APS-C, then moved on to obviously the Sony A7 and then the A7 II series and Mark III. And now Tanaka says since they've achieved that, they now feel that it's appropriate to start focusing again back with the APS-C cameras. And unfortunately, there's no hint on any time frame as far as the camera release. Dave or Ike, what are your thoughts on that? Did that make sense, or should Sony have neglected their APS-C crowd for that long?
Well, it did. I mean, look, I was a bit disappointed. I actually posted a video talking about that last night because I keep seeing these rumors coming on and saying they're going to bring it out, and I keep getting excited about it. And I'm the biggest geek. I'm so hanging out to get another camera because I need one for the Fusion side for me, which is more of the video side, and I'm really hanging out to get something that can shoot 4K 60p. And we keep sort of, you know, they keep hinting that something's going to happen, and then it just doesn't. Looking at that article, when I posted about it, a couple of people commented saying that they translated it themselves. They could understand the Japanese, and they did translate it themselves. They said in there that he did give no hints about when it would happen, but it appears to be that they're now hinting that it could be early next year before that's an APS-C camera is going to be announced, and then the A7S is going to be even way further than that. The problem is I just don't think Sony have been pushed enough, and I don't think they're in a hurry. Even though the Fuji has beaten the A6 500, and it does, it hasn't beaten it by heaps, and that's the problem. They're probably still selling a lot of those cameras, and I think whether the Fuji, there's two thoughts about this, whether Fuji have worried Sony in that camera release was so good that Sony have had to say, boy, we better add some other features in than what we were going to give. And that could be the case because like when the A7 III was released, that hurt basically all the other manufacturers, Canon, Nikon, everyone. Perhaps Fuji have done that with their X-T3 announcement, and then Sony have had to go, whoa, we better stop and rethink what we were going to release. Yeah. What do you guys think about that?
With your argument with Sony being pushed to a degree to release something, the general idea is that Sony's innovative and they, are like always pushing the market forward. I feel like if that is the case, and if that's really a true statement, I don't think it should matter what the other people release if Sony truly is an innovative company and that their goal is to be at the forefront of technology and push things forward. Now, if Sony's innovation is based on what's out there, then I don't think that necessarily makes them more of a trailblazer in the technology as opposed to we just want to release enough to stay on top, as opposed to really being an innovative company. Because again, before Sony jumped into the game, Nikon and Canon would go back and forth with like, we have this, and Canon, we have this, and Nikon would say, we have this. Yeah. And then Sony played catch up for so long. And I think Sony in a way kind of created this monster because with Nikon and Canon, we were used to like every 2 years, like a Ace or a 7D Mark,
a 5D successor, or
yeah, exactly. Like every couple years, like between the D300S and the D500, it took forever for Nikon to update the D500S or D300S to the D500. And D500 is an amazing camera. I doubt they'll be coming out with anything to replace the D500 anytime soon. But Sony released the A6300, and then 9 months later came out the A6500, and then they were like, well, this is all we have to offer for now. But we're so used to a new camera every 6 to 9 months, essentially, that like we're like, where's the new camera? And we haven't necessarily given Sony enough time to really like figure out what they can actually implement, because we're so used to, oh, they got this new feature. And my argument is always the same. Like, we have pretty much everything there is that we could have, except for small stuff like internal analog and 10-bit and 4K 60. I think it takes time for these things to be implemented the right way, or else we'll have a whole lot of issues. And I don't think Sony wants to keep releasing half-baked products,
Yeah. The other thing too is, and I think I'm not certain that anyone expected Fuji to do with what they did with that camera, and it was a bit like what the A7 III has. It was the same thing. No. Fuji really upped their game in video with that camera particularly. I mean, a massive jump in the fact the video focusing works now. They've given 4K 60. It's got 10-bit. They've got their log in that camera. And I'm not certain that the A7000 may have had all those features. They might have wanted to hold back a little bit and put those features in the A7S III. And now that Fuji have announced that camera, I'm wondering whether Sony have gone, boy, that they've hit like when we announced the A7 III. And it's interesting to see if that could have been what's happened, and it's now held that back, that they weren't going to give us the 4K 60p in the A7000. We don't know, but it certainly is an interesting thought about what's holding it back at this stage.
Well, I think a strategy for companies, and it comes to focus, right? So me being a professional photographer and doing a little bit of it, like I do weddings, I do families, and I do high school seniors, right? Somebody who only does weddings, like say a David Osler, is going to have a better wedding business than my business. Somebody who only does seniors is probably going to have a better senior business than my senior business. But the benefit is that like when weddings are slow, I can do seniors, or when seniors are slow, I can do weddings. So I have a little bit of everything, but I may not be as strong business-wise in one area, or even like creative-wise as somebody who's focused. Fuji is focused on APS-C. That's all they care about. And to me, they do medium format, but if you look at their medium format offerings, it's kind of like, it's not really pushing the envelope besides just being like really convenient. But Fuji's focused on it, and they don't have to worry about undercutting or overcutting their full frame line. Whereas like Nikon, even Sony, like Sony has a A7R3, an A7000, which is super cheap, like unheard of the way it's priced. And they have the A9, and and then they have the A7S III, and then they have the
Wait. We don't have the A7S III
sorry,
yet.
sorry.
You mean the
But you know
A7S2?
what we're expecting.
Yeah.
So at some point, like all of these cameras are going to be out on the market. They're stretched thin, like their resources are stretched across. iPhone only releases an iPhone every year. So you best believe that they're going to put whatever they can or take whatever they can out and save it because they know we're releasing the next iPhone.
Yeah.
Like where are they at? Like, and then like for somebody who's coming to spend 1,700 on an A7000 or 2,000 on a full frame A7 III, which one? Like the consumer's kind of confused because it's like you kind of give me too many choices.
The problem is, though, you see it, and I'm seeing it a lot in the comments that I post. People are getting, so they're basically saying if it's not happened by Christmas, they're going to jump onto Fuji. Sony have to worry about that because if that does start to happen, at this stage, Sony have always been ahead of the game, and that's the thing. They always have been ahead of the game. If they let this go, they may lose some people over to Fuji, and it could be a bit of a worry if they wait too long.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and jump us on to the next topic because it's still related to it that I have on the show notes here. This is coming from Sony Alpha Rumors. Now, as you know, the website they tend to get rumors and information from individuals, and at this time, from a recent post they had, that there's still no 100% confirmation about any announcement. Unfortunately, these camera manufacturers are really, really good about keeping things under wraps, unlike maybe an Apple, for example. But these camera manufacturers are really good about leaving people up to the very last minute to find anything out. And, there's still talks about a high-end Aps-C camera. We've talked about those features before in the past. But again, no word on any announcement day. Now, speaking about these potential cameras not being released, or even Mr. Tanaka saying that they are considering focusing on Aps-C, do you guys foresee a potential camera release at Photo Plus?
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen now. I really don't. I was originally thinking it was going to happen at that, but I think everything I've seen so far is pointing out to be announced in early next year now, unfortunately. And like I said, I'm hanging out for one. So I think now I'm sort of resigned to the fact that they're not going to announce it. You will sort of get an inkling because all of the so-called influencers will move to one place. And that's how you can get an idea of what's going on. And you know that there's something is going to be announced. But there's no even that hasn't even been looked at this stage, and no one's saying anything about that. So I don't think it's going to be I don't think we're going to see it in a hurry, unfortunately.
I think that if Sony releases anything, it'll probably be at WPPI like they did like that. To me, that was a shock. I was like, oh, they released a camera at WPPI, which makes the most sense. Like if they were going to release, just wait it out, let this whole like new mirrorless wars thing fizzle out, and then release the A7000 next year along with the A7S III like later on in the year, so they can be back. Because Nikon and Canon have shown their cards. Canon said they have something that's coming soon, but Nikon's pretty much they're done for the next couple of years. So Sony can kind of take back over the interest next year without any real competition outside of Panasonic. Really, yeah.
I mean, there's another thought as well, and I heard this the other day, and this is another interesting fact. Nikon have showed their hand, so they've showed the fact that they've got those two cameras that are announced. The only one that hasn't yet is Canon, because Canon still have to announce their higher-ended model. So there's another thought too. Are Sony waiting to see what Canon announce for their higher-ended model before they sort of drop the A7S III as well? That's another thing that I've heard a number of people talking about now as well. They know what Nikon's got, but they don't know what Canon's going to offer in their high-end model. And clearly there's going to be a high-end model because those lenses that Canon announced do not match the Canon that has been announced at this stage. They're high-ended lenses on a lower-ended body. So, are we going to see some amazing Canon release that Sony is saying we're going to wait and see what they do before we drop this amazing A7S III?
Well, I think Sony's camera, if it's done, it's done. Like they've made it. Like it's not like they gotta rebuild the whole camera from scratch and release it in 6 months. So I think whatever they have is whatever they have, and it's probably being tested. And if anything, if Canon if Canon releases whatever, they might can tinker with the firmware, but the camera itself, I believe, is pretty much done for the most part, if it's done, you know.
And that's the thing, firmware, you can do amazing things with firmware. You'd be surprised how much they can change a camera with firmware. I read an article the other day saying the development of the camera is not one of the largest things. It's actually developing the software and the firmware to run that camera is the hard part. So it might, you probably be amazed how much they can add in firmware.
I mean, when we had Dave Altizer the other time on the show, when he was at Photokina, he did say that when the Panasonic camera was finally released, you had a swarm of Sony engineers actually go over there and take a look at the camera and take notes.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and what's really interesting though, when we get into the topic about the Sigma, which we'll transition to in just a little bit here, there was Sigma did not even know about Panasonic's camera as well until they finally announced it. So it was put under wraps, and even Sigma had no idea about Panasonic's new camera. So I do want to tackle a super chat we just picked up from Tefero Pixoto. He says, "Do you recommend getting Sony Pro support?"
I do.
If you meet the requirements and you have the camera body, I believe, and a couple of lenses, you definitely should consider it. I think it's worth it if you take advantage of the actual loan support that they have for that to try out some of the equipment. I haven't had to send anything into them yet, Dave. Have you had a chance to do that yet or anything?
Yeah, I have. I did have that issue when I lost that memory card. I thought it was the A9 that actually had a problem, so I set that in, and it turned out that it was the card that was corrupting. So that was the only time. But I send them in to get cleaned. I set my 70-200 back in to get serviced because I thought there was a focusing issue, and there wasn't. It was just my settings on the camera actually were wrong. So I have used it, but the service is incredible here. When I actually have an issue, I just put it online. They contact me within about 30 minutes of me putting the thing online, and then they send a courier to my house to pick it up that day. And then basically it's back within a couple of days after that. When I had the A9, they were trying to work out what the problem was. They sent me a replacement camera. So yeah, it's just a fantastic service. I really can't say highly enough of it. I'm also in Nikon Pro support. I've never let it go. I don't know why, because I haven't got any Nikon gear, but I was in that. But the problem with that is I did have to go into Melbourne to actually drop that off. It was a totally different service. The Sony support here is unbelievable. It really is amazing.
All right. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and cut into the Sigma CEO interview for this article, or it was done through DP Review. They did the interview with Kazuto Yamaki. I hope I'm saying that right. And I'll just go ahead and quickly summarize some bullet points here as far as what they got out of the interview. The CEO basically said the L mount is going to be a well-balanced size. They are looking to ship their first L mount lenses out in the middle of next year. There will be an L mount version that the 14 Sony E mount lenses that currently exist. And then some L mount lenses will be specific to Sigma. So they will develop some specific Sigma L mount lenses specific to that. They haven't had any communication with Canon and Nikon about their mounts. They have mentioned, the CEO said there is a probability of future problems with compatibility with their lenses, but he says that the current firmware is robust and the USB dock can upgrade the firmware if necessary, which we've seen before. Sigma had no influence on the design and creation of the Panasonic cameras. As we mentioned earlier, they saw it for the first time, like everyone else did. They said they will still provide SA or Sigma mounts, but not any future SA mount cameras. They do want to differentiate themselves from third-party manufacturers. And I wanted to get some people's input on this. They did mention that they created a Sigma, a 40 millimeter art lens because it was very popular amongst videographers and cinematographers. I don't know if anybody in the chat here does a lot of video or cinema, but is a 40 millimeter lens something of interest to you? I'm just curious about that. And I think a headlining point here is that mirrorless mount lens sales, they predict within 3 to 4 years to be roughly 30 to 70% of their sales. And they say they only develop lenses based on demand. And they do say that they need to create a new production system to meet the ever-growing amount of lenses and mounts that they are providing for. So,
that's actually true. Like, now that there's so many cameras available out there, it's like you have to do Canon, Nikon, Sony, and your own system, and have enough for people to actually purchase. So that's crazy.
Yeah, it's hard for them to keep up, I think. Yeah.
No, I think that's is pretty insane. They do mention that they need to expand. The CEO is basically saying there's not enough space and that there's going to be some issues potentially in the future to be able to make so many different mounts because they've got so many mounts to cover for their lens lineup.
Steve's done it again.
I saw that he just dropped another $50. Holy smoke! Says this is for the viewers that won't send even $2. So sad.
Jason's going to be shattered when he sees this. He's going to see. Oh, I love it.
Yeah, you getting them. Peter McKinnon donations coming through here.
Shoot.
I noticed too, 40 mil is interesting because I find the 35 mil for me is the perfect size that I use for most of my photography, but I do love the 55 on the gimbal for doing video. So I suppose the 40 is sort of in between that. So it might be a great focal length. It's not a lens that I've ever thought about buying though. So it's interesting that they come up with that 40 millimeter is the most popular focal length. What's your favorite focal length if you had to choose one? Mine's 35 and 85. So what do you guys like to use?
My favorite focal length is the 35 millimeter, for most everything. But when I did my Z7 video, you know what? I take that back because I didn't realize that the Z7 crops into APS-C when you're shooting slow motion. So I was shooting slow motion, and I was like, "Damn, why am I so close?" But it was basically 50 millimeters in the
Oops, Ike's gone. Oh, no, he's back.
Oh yeah. So the 35 is essentially between 35 and 24. I think 24. Yeah, 24. I like shooting video at too.
I like
about the 24.
Mm-hmm.
I like 35, but maybe the 40 is interesting me a little bit now that I think about it.
Because the Battis, does the Battis interest you, Danny, as well? That Battis, because that apparently has an amazing almost macro mode in it as well.
I didn't know that. I'll have to see if I can check it out. All right, let's see here. We got a question from Tafrel Pixoto. It says, tell him, Steve. He says, what printer do you guys recommend? I use a Canon Pixma Pro 100. That's the printer I use when I do print from time to time. Dave or Ike, what do you guys print?
I don't do any printing at all, so
I outsource my prints to my lab, which is either Miller's or Black River Imaging. So Miller's, which is Miller's Print Lab, or Black River Imaging or White House. Yeah, I don't print my own. I don't print my stuff myself. We print, but not myself.
Yeah, I did pick up another Pixma Pro 100 recently, and thank you for reminding me because I need to turn in the rebate form. So I got it for $50 with some 13 by 19 paper, which is pretty nice. So yeah, I need to remember to turn in get my $200 rebate. Okay, all right. Let's cut into the final topic that we're going to cover this evening, and it has to do with Sony batteries. Now, someone mentioned that this first surfaced from one of the Sony artisans. I
it was Brian Smith.
Brian Smith. Yeah. There we go. It surfaced there, and then the funny thing is, I caught wind of this issue happening about a couple weeks ago. I didn't think much of it, but I was out shooting. I was doing, I think, video. I was out at a football game. And I was recording, and all of a sudden I saw this warning pop up, and I was it didn't panic me, but it kind of threw me off. And the warning basically says, and by the way, anyone out there using third-party batteries, let me know if you've, or let us know if you've been having some issues with it. It says the operation and safety of this battery cannot be guaranteed, and it asks you whether you want to continue using it. So this occurred while I was recording video. So it didn't stop the recording of the video, but it did pop up. And I had to cancel the warning that was appearing on the actual camera. And then after I saw this, I started investigating it more. And it even did not display the actual battery indicator. So you don't actually see a percentage of your actual battery life, which is what I was seeing on my Sony A9. So Dave or Ike, what's your thoughts on that? Now, just granted, this wasn't happening before; it just started happening with the recent firmware updates.
Yeah, I don't use any third party batteries. I'm a bit fussy in the fact that I like to stick with the Sony batteries. Apparently, from what I researched early, they are quite complex because there's a lot of components in there actually that sort of links to the camera. And I just thought I can't trust anything that basically is not going to be the original battery for what I'm doing in weddings and stuff like that. And I did use them a while ago when I bought my A7 III. I bought some of the cheaper Wasabi batteries and stuff like that, and I found the shelf life was okay for a while, and all of a sudden they just died and they didn't charge. Whereas the original Sony batteries I've got still are charging like I bought them on the day one. So that sort of made me think, well, yes, they might be half the price, but I'm not convinced that they last as long. But when you're dealing with a camera that's so advanced as what these new cameras are, it could give an issue. And that's what worried me, particularly when I saw this come up. And I thought, wow, I'm glad I didn't buy that, because if I saw that sign come up, I wouldn't be using them. Because if something did happen, it could also void warranty as well. I bet you they could check if there was a voltage difference or something like that, and it did cause an issue, that it may actually show up and it could void your warranty. So I'm not sure, but I bought 5 of the batteries when this came out because I didn't realize how good these batteries actually were. So I went out and bought 5 of them. And I never really go past 1 and a third of batteries in a whole wedding day. The new Z batteries are incredible. So the price really isn't that much of a factor to me because they last so great. You don't need so many. I'd just be buying genuine batteries if it was me. But that's me being super safe.
Yeah, I only own Nikon first party batteries for my Nikon cameras. And I bought third party batteries for like my G85 and my Sony X3000, and I've never really had an issue with those. But again, like David said, like these are like my essentially fun cameras for other stuff. It's not my workhorse cameras. So, and luckily for me, with Nikon using the same battery throughout, like I have like probably like 5 of these batteries, and then I probably buy like the newer ones that you can charge with the battery. So I don't.
Well, Dion said there, I believe there is power fluctuations when under heavy load. This seems to affect the writings to the SD cards. And see, and I agree. See, this is the thing. Those batteries are quite technological, that they are very, very advanced. That's why it took so long for someone to copy them, because they're not just like a simple battery. And if you're dealing with something that has so much power requirements like these new cameras have, the slightest voltage variance can cause issues. And this is why I'm saying it may not be worthwhile, particularly like if you're shooting an A9 and you're trying to shoot 20 frames per second, you're shooting video, it can, it may cause potentially drop frames. And I just don't think it's worth saving money. It's like using cheap cards in your camera. It's just not worth doing that. And I really think you may be, shooting yourself in your own foot by doing it. I just don't advise it.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, I when I initially picked these up, it was for review and testing when I got them. But I do typically use the Sony branded batteries. I have a few of them available. But it's just interesting because I wanted to see what was going on with these third-party batteries, and it does alarm me a little bit with this update. I know even with past DSLRs, I think it was, I could be wrong, I think Canon also did something similar, or was it Nikon? I think a Nikon was very early on. I remember Nikon with third-party batteries giving warnings that you couldn't use the third-party batteries with Nikon. But that's just kind of how it is. I think if you're kind of shooting in a more professional environment, I'd be cautious of maybe third-party batteries. But it's just very interesting to see that.
And I think that just depends on like what you do. Like if you're professional, you probably might want to invest in first party. But if you're just like amateur or like leisure, then I guess it wouldn't hurt to have a third party, because you won't lose very much if you're just doing stuff for fun. Yep. So, and that kind of plays into it as well.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see here. Let's see what folks are saying about the battery. I mean, for those of you that don't know the price difference right now, I think for the genuine battery, it's about $78 US for a genuine Sony battery, and then third party, you'll see them sell them for about two for 70 or a bit less than that. So, like Dave was mentioning, about half the price. So, is half the price worth the possibility of having issues with the camera? But now, considering these new firmware updates, you're going to keep seeing this warning pop up. So it's going to be a distraction. So it's definitely going to end up pushing a lot of people to have to pick up the genuine batteries regardless. So that's going to be the situation going into the future.
Oh, Robert just dropped a big donation as well.
Whoa.
He said, I'll be selling my APS-C lenses in the morning and using the dollars to buy another full frame lens for my A7 III. Thanks for the help. And that's one of the great things, Robert, that I sort of recommend now. Is it covers you for future proofing. You know, you can move to full frame if you want to. So buying full frame lenses is a great idea if you can actually afford it.
Yeah, I got nothing to say about that.
Yeah, it's good. Man, another full frame lens. Which full frame lens is that going to be, Robert? Okay. All right. I think we are pretty much into the Q&A section. We'll probably hang out for another, I don't know, 10 to 15, depending on you guys. And if you haven't had a chance to, if you've been enjoying the show, make sure to go ahead and drop a like on the video. Would really appreciate it. And also make sure to check out Dave as well as PhotoMeI's channels. Their links are posted in the description down below, and show them some love and subscribe to their channels. So, but yeah.
Somebody, who was it? I forget his name. Where is he at? Oh, Venom 5809 says, so far you have the baddest women. So I appreciate that, Venom. I try to keep, my models to a particular standard,
All right.
It's like, I'm like, only two? Geez, you haven't watched enough. But anyways.
Burb said too that he's shooting weddings and only uses 1.5 Sony Z batteries in a 10 to 12 hour day. And I'm finding that, like, I'm actually, sometimes I'm getting through the whole day on that original battery. I think last Saturday's one wedding I did only use one battery, and I still had 10% left at the end of the day. So the batteries are incredible, how much they're running. They really are amazing, those Z batteries. And someone else said that, talking about in Canada, I think it's $120 Canadian. But remember, you've got to look at the camera as a whole system. And like Deanna said, this is the first time Sony has issued a warning about third-party device batteries. And like I'm saying, if it is a fluctuation in voltage that you're getting, it can affect what your camera's doing. And I just don't think it's worth it. I really, particularly if you're earning money for shooting, I really think you probably should be using this a true Sony battery. And if it does stop your camera from booting up quickly because you're getting that warning sign, you may miss a shot. By the way, another thing too, the firmware 2 update is ridiculous how fast the camera is starting now. It's instant.
Really?
And it's one of the main yeah, it is instant. If I turn my camera on with the firmware 2 update, it is unbelievably quick.
All right, A9, here we go. A9, here we go. I'm going to turn it on right now.
No, it's not the A9, it's the A7 III.
The A9 feels like it takes a while. I could have, perfectly
try the A7 III. It is incredible.
All right. Let me see here. Do I have a genuine battery in here? Yes, genuine battery, A7 III. Here we go. Okay. Now it's good. I don't know. Was that?
It is so fast.
It's the first kiss or all that.
Turn it off again and turn it back on. It is almost instant. It's incredible.
It might not be fair because I have a Sigma lens on here. So let's see. Second boot up. Okay, that was faster. About half the time.
Yeah. It's almost instant once you've had that initial boot. It's incredible.
Okay. All right. There was your point though, PhotoMeIc. There was a time when I turned it on during a game, and it just took forever. I felt like I missed. I think I did miss something. It took that long.
I was like, no.
Yeah.
It was like crap.
Yeah. I wish it would boot up just a little faster. That's just me though. All right.
That's DSLR though. DSLRs are like that. It's like that's
quick.
That's one thing. Too many electronics, not mechanics.
Let's see here. If you see any questions, let me know.
Somebody had a question that says QA Jason Levine says, can the Z7 shoot over 30 seconds without the bulb? Jason, I don't know because I don't shoot long exposures and I didn't get a chance to test that out. So my next chance to be able to test it out is when I get my Z6 in December. I did test out the like low light focusing. I was telling those guys earlier, I tested out the low light focusing at a wedding and it worked okay. It wasn't so, and I'll tell these people the same thing I told you guys. The only Sony camera that I've shot a wedding with was the A9, and the A9 is like leagues above the rest of the camera as far as like focusing speed and how quick it is with that electronic shutter. The only time the A9 shows its weakness is when you go to the mechanical shutter, and it's only 5 frames per second, which going from 20 up to 20 frames to 5 frames is like it feels like it takes forever. But outside of that, the A9 is amazing. I've shot the A7R3 in the A7 III, and I've done regular photo shoots with those, and those things perform great as well. But I've never shot low light to really test the ability of those cameras to work in weddings. But from what I've seen, people haven't had any issues. But then again, if they did have any issues, what they say, because when I was shooting the wedding with the Z7, sometimes it would hunt, and I'm like, man, this is crazy. Like, do I tell people that like it's hunting, or do I just leave that out and try to like be like, oh, it works? Because when it locked on, and it was great. But at the same time, like it was dark too, so maybe I was expecting a bit much from like a 45 megapixel camera or 46 megapixel camera that's meant for like portraits and not necessarily for weddings. And maybe I was expecting like D850 / D5 level performance. And keep in mind, these are what the focus points on the side, not necessarily the middle one focused great, but the side focus points, were a little questionable. And let me, I pulled up some images, your entire screen share. Did my screen switch out? Okay, you can see David.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I'll show you, right? So see how dark this is? Can you guys see it?
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So this is how dark it was. Now, when it hit, it was great. Like this was perfect. This is a frame that's in focus. This is a frame with the bride and groom. They're super backlit. It still was able to hit them perfectly. This is when the groom was getting ready and addressing. And David, you shoot weddings, so you know how you can look at this wedding and pretty much tell it's dark here, but they had a spotlight on them, so the spotlight hit them great. This was another the same image. This is essentially what it looked like without flash. And I think this is probably like ISO 6400, and they had the crazy DJ lights, and I think this might have been the middle focus point. I'm not sure, but this is how dark it was. So when it got into this situation is when things got a little hairy for the focus points.
What lens are you using there? What lens are you using there, Ike?
I was probably using the native 35. Because I was using the 24 to 70 early, but then I switched to the 35, and I shot mostly the 35 1.8. At one point, I did use the 50. So if I go back, I just probably got rid of those. But the ones with the bride and groom, I switched to the 85 on the adapter, and adapter like this one. I'm not sure. This might be the adapter. This might be the 35. It looks like the 35. This one, I believe, is the 35 as well. Could be the 50. This one, this is the 24 to 70 f4. I'm not sure which lens this is. This is the 85 millimeter 1.8 with the adapter. This one is the 85 or the 50, and it's in good light. It's amazing. In low light, depending on what focus points you use, it could be a little tricky. But like I said, overall it performed well. It's just my biggest gripe with the camera, aside from trying to get it to focus in the dark, is because I've used the Sonys and I know how the Sonys work. The Sony's focusing system is more efficient and more refined when you need to try to focus on the corner. And what that means, if you guys have used Sony, if you use zone focusing and you put it to the right zone, Sony shows like the little matrix dots on the people. Yeah. So you can see exactly what it's focused on. With Nikon, it just shows a box. So you can only hope that it's focusing where you want it to focus, but you can't actually see the actual focus points being on the actual subject. And the only way to confirm is if you switch to the smaller one, but then moving the smaller one around the frame takes time. So
Yeah.
I just think they need a little more refining on the actual system itself. But the otherwise image quality and for what it did, it's not that bad.
Yeah, it's low light. I've actually found the low light focusing now particularly is so good on what I'm using, the A7 III and the A9, that I'm even not using flash anymore. It's changed completely the way that I shoot. I'm just using a little bit of a video light, and then I'm shooting in the natural light of whatever that surrounding is. The low light focusing now is incredible, particularly with the A9. It's unbelievable when you put a fast lens on those cameras. It will almost do in the dark. And it never, for me, misses focus as long as I've got a fast lens on there. And like I said, it's changed the way I shoot completely, because I always used to use flash. I was always doing it that way. And now I'm basically not using that at all. And I'm just using the ambient light because it's that strong. The autofocus is incredible. And it's, as long as you use AFS when you're dealing with low light, because it won't use continuous anymore, because you need that contrast detection to really nail the focus in. It really is amazing. The low light's incredible.
All right, we just got a $10 super chat here. Rykrat's asking, I was really looking forward to the A7000 or whatever it was going to be called. Would you get the A6500 or the A7 II, since they are around the same price? Love all three of your channels. Rykrat, my recommendation here would be, if you shoot things that are sports oriented or fast moving subjects, I think the 6500 would be a better bet for you at this time. If you're more maybe portrait, maybe landscape oriented, non-fast moving subjects, I think the A7 II would be a good choice. But curious to see what Dave and Ike might have to say.
I wouldn't get the A7 II. I'd get the A6500 over those two cameras, but I'd still wait a little bit. If you're not in any hurry, just wait a little bit longer. I'd probably try, if you can, to save and get the A7 III, wait a little bit longer and save and get the A7 III. I wouldn't be buying the A7 II. The focus on that is like chalk and cheese if you're dealing with comparing it to the A6500 or the A7 III. It really is slow in focusing, and it doesn't work very well in low light focus either, that camera, the A7 II. I used to shoot with that totally, so I know that camera really well. I sold both of them.
Yeah, I'm a stickler. I'm like it sucks because I'm like, oh, but it's full frame and and great light and great images at 50 millimeter at 1.4. It's like it can't be beat. So I think Rykrat, it kind of depends on what you shoot. Like if you just shoot portraits, I don't think it'll make that much of a difference. But if you shoot like events and stuff, then I think Osler might be onto something.
All right. Let's see here. Any other questions you guys want to tackle that you saw? If not, we'll probably wrap up in about 5 minutes or so.
They're just talking about the price of the A9. Yeah, I noticed there.
Let's see. Jason Levine asked if the Z7 is compatible with the Cam Ranger. I haven't used the Cam Ranger personally.
So. No, I haven't used it either. It probably isn't at this stage. I think it'd be too new for it to work with it, I think. We were talking about the A9. I was talking about the A9 earlier, and if you check my Instagram, I'll just put it in here what it is.
Yeah, go for it.
If you check my Instagram feed out, you'll see that there's an image on there that actually has a bride and groom jumping. And it was a country wedding that I did on the weekend, and I used the 20 frames per second, and I grabbed that perfect moment that only something like the A9 could give me, because in that jump, I had to get where their feet just clapped together when they were in midair. If I haven't posted it, I think I might post it just in a few minutes actually after this. But I got that.
You're live
because
I don't see any. I don't see any jumping.
I think I posted the last one, which was the bride and groom sitting down. So I'll post it in a minute actually on there, and you'll see what I mean. I'll grab that perfect moment, and you can only do something like that with the A9 because you need those frames to get that exact second. And remember, I wanted this to be as natural as possible, so I didn't want them to do this 15 times. It was their idea to do it. and I just grabbed the A9 and just shot away, and I could choose out of one of those 20 frames the one that I wanted, and it was that perfect moment, and you'll see it shortly. By the way, if you do post, I mean, you guys might want to post there. Anyone that follows me on Instagram, I always follow you back. So if you do want to follow me on there, I will follow you straight back.
Oh, so your new name is David Lanier, because the way you talk about that A9, look, these are moments that you can only get with the Sony. Like, wait a second, bro, come on now.
It's that second. And you know what, even with dance photos, when I'm getting, because I'm doing a dance concert on Monday, which is a really big client for me, a really big client. And when you have girls that can be outside the frame, they'll run in and jump, and the 20 frames per second gives me that perfect second, that moment that can be the difference of having an amazing shot or, you know, just an average shot. And it's just beautiful to get those extra frames. And it's same for sport. That's the reason why that camera is so good for sport.
Yeah, no, I'm not gonna lie. The responsiveness of the A9, or like cameras like the D5 or the 5D, like the responsiveness of it, you click the shutter and it's there. Like the way you can capture those moments and the speed of it capturing, like that's something, especially like you said, David, for event photography or weddings. Like when you're trying to capture moments, the faster and the less I'd say a delay there is from the time you see to when you press that shutter and get that moment, the better, and the better your moments you can get. Like it's amazing.
Yeah. We got this question a while back. They were asking, Wetsuit76 asking, SanDisk error update. Was there any updates with regards to that? Did you hear about the SanDisk card issue?
No, only I heard was that Sony were potentially going to do a firmware update. That's the last thing that I read about that but whether Sony, it's their problem, we don't know yet. You know, it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Gotcha.
Okay. Let's see here. Chasing Creations asking, what APS-C lens would you guys want to see when the A7000 is announced? I think I would be interested in seeing maybe like a 1650 or that kind of rough range f2.8 lens.
I agree. I think like something like an f2.8 or maybe like a native Sony 16, 1.4. So kind of, Sigma already has it, so I guess you could go with the Sigma mount, but I guess Sony does need to release something like that. And like you said, if they're going to release a pro level A7, they have to release a pro level zoom for their cameras. They have to. They can't, because there's nothing of it. Like, how you expect people to buy it and take it seriously if there's no 2.8 zooms?
Dave, your thoughts on a lens for this A7000 when it rolls around?
Well, I'm torn because I'm not interested in any lenses for that at all. I just buy full frame lenses. But that's me. I will get the A7000 if it comes out. Well, I shouldn't say I will, because I want to get one camera probably, and I'll be tossing between that and the A7S III. So I'll probably wait and see what both of those cameras are. But I would just get a full frame lens so that I've got the option of moving it between both cameras. That's just me personally. Apart from that, probably, like you said, the 16, which is the 18 to, what was it, 35, is it? No, the 16, 35, isn't it? What's the Sigma lens? That's
the 16 millimeter f1.4. They have a nice prime.
Yeah, but
talking about the 18
zoom?
at 30. You're talking about the 18 35 f1.8.
Yeah, I'd love something like that. I mean, that would make me buy it. If they brought out something like that, that's a lens I would buy.
All right, that's okay. Let's see here. Vincent Vega is asking, as an influencer or as influencers, what was the biggest thing you've done that has gotten you the most feedback, or what has impacted your growth in your channels? Overheating. Dave, you?
Probably when I do the angry photographer, probably. I have a ball when I do that. No, probably the release of the A7 III, I would say probably got me the most hits and likes, which was fantastic.
I agree. I think it's funny enough as it is, me being a Nikon shooter, but last year when I shot those Sony cameras and did those videos with Sony cameras, that helped my channel grow a lot and put me on the radar for a lot of people, especially you guys. But to me, it's not just the fact that I did a video on Sony. I just did something that nobody else did, which I actually like shot behind the scenes of a weddings or And I think also what helps my channel is my models. Like this is just keep it real. It's just my shoots and my models. I got and I have so many ideas. I just haven't implemented them yet. So.
All right. Okay, I think that's gonna do it for us this evening. For those of you that joined us for this Monday Live, I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to drop a like if you did enjoy our chat this evening. Make sure to check out Dave Osler and Photo Miag. Their links. I don't know if you guys can post it in the chat. That'd be great too. If you can post a link to your site. But we're also going to post it in the description below. There will be show notes posted if you caught the show after the fact. But the next episode or the next podcast will probably be on Jason's channel, potentially. We'll let you know if anything happens then. But Dave or Photo Miak, anything you guys want to say before we head on out this evening?
Yeah, I'd like to. Can I push? I've the last wedding that I did on the weekend, I actually got someone to film the whole wedding with me. I posted the first part of that the other day. I'm going to do a wedding series of showing how I shoot a complete wedding from start to finish, showing how I do the lighting, what lenses, cameras I use, and everything else. So please join that and have a look at it. Because it's going to be something that may interest you if you're thinking about how do people shoot weddings, as a full-time business. So you'll be able to see me doing that from start to finish. So please check that out if you haven't. Yeah.
I'm just going to promote my channel and just leave this up here. And this is just me for the rest of the day. You guys check out my channel. I shoot gorgeous models, and I actually know what I'm talking about. I just don't sit behind a desk. Well, no offense to anybody. David, you don't sit behind a desk. And Danny, you're cool too. But those other guys who sit behind desks and just talk about specs. But you guys are cool. I actually make content. So yeah.
All right. Thank you guys for posting that. Thank you guys for joining this evening again. And again, everyone out there, have a great evening or a great morning. In this case for Dave, I guess, I think.
Yeah, well, it's what is it? Lunchtime. Yeah.
All right. We'll see you guys later. Bye.
Catch you guys. Been great.
All righty.